Hello, my name is Steve, and I'd like to take this opportunity to give you a living endorsement for Dr. Carlos Garcia, and in particular, Chelation Therapy. Some 7 years ago, I had a massive coronary, went to the hospital, and I fully expected to have a multiple bypass procedure. I wasn't terribly concerned. It's something they do day in and day out. As I find out now, more days in than necessarily need to be. However, when I woke up some 3 days later, my cardiologist, who was a personal friend, was waiting by my bedside. And my simple question was, how many bypasses have you done? And he told me none. I thought it was a joke and he was pulling my leg. So I asked him again and I said, really, how many bypasses did you have to do? And I could see the expression on his face change, and he said, I didn't do any, Steve. We didn't do anything. The logical question was why. He said you wouldn't survive the procedure. That's an eye-opener. That changed my life. And at that time, we didn't see any other solutions than to follow his directions and take lots and lots of medications, starting with a handful of pills in the morning, a handful of pills at bedtime, and multiples during the day. After a year of that, and constant problems with chest pains, shortness of breath, 4 to 5 times or more per day, every day, they did another catheterization and determined that I still could not survive a procedure. At that point, a year after my first coronary, I contacted Dr. Garcia and I started chelation. Some 5 years later, I did have another episode. And when they did a catheterization, my cardiologist said, my goodness, those arteries really are much larger. The blockages have really decreased. And although we talked about chelation a number of times, he said to my wife and my children at that time, I still can endorse chelation, but don't let him stop. It's kept him alive, and it's keeping him alive. And I can endorse chelation. I've had the experience with my father 25 years ago, who was written off by his doctors with repeated coronaries, and at age 74 they told him he might have a day or a week, and at age 76 he was still going strong until he was killed in an auto accident. My father-in-law, at the same time, who had already had one leg amputated with diabetes and also had a heart condition, was barely able to navigate and move himself around in a wheelchair. And they were about to amputate a second leg when I introduced him to chelation. And 6 months later, he was up and around, traveling around the country whenever and however he felt, and visiting friends and relatives and taking vacations on a regular basis. And he only lived another 8.5 years until he died of natural causes. So if you have a question about chelation, does it work? If you have a cardiologist who says it won't work, you can take my word for it, my father, my father-in-law, and certainly my own personal experience. Chelation does a job to keep you well, to keep you alive. There are no side effects. It has no problematic things whatsoever. But every morning when you wake up, you will be very glad that you've heard of chelation and Dr. Carlos Garcia, because I thank him for giving me my life back.